Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to Threadman Chazza. I was going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but I don't know what time it is in where you are right now, so I'm not quite sure. But good day to everybody. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying the new start to the week and everything like that. We're back today with another show. Today we're going to cover the Brighton game. Obviously, not a good result for Manchester United against Brighton. We're going to cover the game. We're going to talk about things like, Rashford. We're going to talk about Luke Shaw, Maguire, Martinez, Eriksen. We're going to go through every player. We might even do some sort of match ratings. We'll go through the game. We'll talk about where the game was won and lost. We'll talk about how Brighton played and how they sort of stopped us from being very dangerous really throughout most of the game. So that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. As always, please leave a like if you enjoy. Please do subscribe if you're new. Pre-recorded show today, just because it's easiest. I think for these sort of analytical shows, just for me to sort of talk and show things, and you guys can react to them sort of at the end. So that's how I want these shows to run. Other shows that are more sort of interactive, of course, we'll do those ones live. But today we're going to talk about Brighton. So very disappointed, obviously, to lose Erik Ten Hag's first game. I think a lot of us were really, really looking forward to it. A little bit disappointed, obviously, with lack of signings and things like that going into the new season. But I think most of us were, most of us expected Manchester United to probably play better than we did. I think we struggled throughout a lot of the game, but we're going to talk about that now, guys. We're going to talk about that now. So I'm going to bring up just something I posted on Twitter, so we can just have a look through this, because I think it will probably help in terms of the sort of understanding of everything. So we're just going to run through this. So we're just going to run through a few things on build up, here we go, build up Martinez, sort of the midfield area, Eriksen, contrasting De Gea and Sanchez. So that's what we're going to look at. So if we start with the build up, so I actually thought we did pretty well with our build up against Brighton. You can see here again the centre back split. Fred is the number 6. You can call it a 2-1 build-up structure if you like, with the 2 centre-backs and Fred, or you can call it a 2-3. So he's out of picture on what you're seeing right now, but Diogo Dalot is obviously on the right-hand side as well. So you can call this sort of a 2-1 or even a 2-3 sort of build-up. So the most important thing is 2 centre-halves, a split, Fred is the 6, and then you've got the 2 full-backs very wide and deep. So this actually went okay. I'm going to focus on Maguire and Martinez first. I thought Maguire played decently well. I think a lot of people thought he was awful. I didn't think so. I thought Maguire was decent. Still a bit slow with his passing, but the range of his passing was good. He played some good cross balls. He drove into midfield quite well as well. So in terms of what Maguire offered us from the right-hand side in build-up, I think it was good. Martinez as well did well in terms of build-up, very progressive. We're going to have a look at that in a moment. But I think the balance there in terms of build-up was quite good. We know both players are good sort of ball-playing centre-backs. And when you say ball-playing centre-backs, some people instantly think, can he pass? It's not just about the passing. It's about, can you drive into midfield? Are those passes accurate? Are they crisp? And I think Maguire, although he is very slow with it, at times with his progressive passing, I thought Maguire did well in that aspect. So in terms of those 2 centre-backs, in terms of our build-up, it's been the same sort of structure throughout pre-season. Obviously, Martinez hasn't played a lot of the games, but this has been the same structure throughout pre-season. There's obviously, you've also got at times Dalot inverts or Malacia or Shaw invert as well. But a lot of our build-up structure has been this sort of 2 centre-back split. The 2 full-backs go very, very wide and stay quite deep. And then Fred is the 6. So this is what we've been working with so far. So De Gea then. So, again, De Gea in this game, weakness, real weakness. On the ball, this was just one. I haven't included videos here, I've included animations. But one big thing that De Gea did throughout was sort of his actual accuracy throughout the game was pretty good. But again, with his longer passing, it wasn't brilliant. So again, he kicks the ball astray here, out of play, when he could have played to Martinez. He could have even played to Shaw. An Edison in that situation could even find an attacking player. So again here, De Gea looks awkward during United's build-up. This is something we already know. So again, De Gea was not great at that aspect. Again, Fred as well struggled. So if you look here, Fred receives the ball from De Gea. So you'll see the ball in motion there. And Fred, on receiving the ball from De Gea, actually he loses the ball, passes it to a Brighton player. Trossard intercepts, and Trossard could do better there, but then Fred here, luckily, reacts with his recovery, intercepts, and United go again. But you'll see there that we got very lucky there. Fred, again, as that link from sort of defence to midfield, from that link from the first phase of build-up to the second phase of build-up. I think the first phase in terms of our centre-backs was good. De Gea in our first phase is a liability. I just don't think he's comfortable enough. And I think Fred, again, also isn't comfortable enough. So when we're trying to progress the ball from that sort of that more defensive midfield player, we're really struggling. We're really struggling with Fred. So, yeah, we all know we need recruitment in there. Martinez, yeah, as I said, very progressive, particularly in the first half. He was good. I've put him in a magnifying glass here. You can see him going to play a pass, and then you'll see on this second picture he plays a lovely pass there through towards Eriksen. If that was Maguire playing on the left, he wouldn't play that pass. I don't think Lindelof would either. I don't think Varane would. I don't think Bailly would. So I think Martinez is our only centre-back, obviously our only left-footed centre-back by nature, but the only one with his left foot that is comfortable to play those passes. So that's where having a sort of a left-sided centre-back, a left-footed centre-back, sort of the left centre-back position, if you can have a left-footed player in there, it gives you more balance, because you've got Maguire from the right side who can play to Dalot or play to Sancho, play towards the right and towards the left quite comfortably. He switched to the left a few times. Martinez, again, can play to the left and also can switch it to the right. If you've got a right-footed centre-back at left-back, it's awkward. It's awkward. It really is, because you have to adjust your body shape to then pass to the left with your right foot instead if you're not very good with both feet. But you see Martinez offers us a real balance because he's left-footed in our build-up structure. So that was a promising thing with Martinez. Again, he plays another lovely pass here. You can see him there again being closed down, and then he plays a pass here. You can see, I think that might be Bruno. Yes, Bruno that's going to receive that ball. So he plays another nice pass there through the lines. There's a few players in his way. He's got a couple of obstructions there, but he finds the pass. So he's very comfortable playing forwards in tight spaces. This is what we need. This is something we've been missing. So I think that was very promising for Martinez. You'll see here, he's put under pressure again. And what you'll see is I'm not quite sure which Brighton player it is, but the Brighton player putting him under pressure. He's taken that touch. He's seen the pressure coming. He's taken a touch towards, sort of with his left foot, puts it towards the right-hand side. The Brighton player jumps up to try and block it, and he takes it around him, so he keeps possession. So you'll see there, again, Martinez, press resistance. He did get caught out once. I'm not always going to be, obviously I'm always going to try and offer positive things, but it wasn't all good from Martinez. We'll talk about sort of the penalty shot and things like that. But I think once he did give the ball away, and he didn't look comfortable, and then he got a yellow card in the first half. So it wasn't all good for Martinez, but for a first game, considering how a lot of our other players performed, I thought he was reasonably comfortable on the ball throughout. So that was a promising sign. We've struggled, I think, with Maguire at that left centre-back. I think Maguire has some progressive attributes, but I just think it's always looked a bit awkward for Maguire on that left-hand side. I know that's where he's played for a lot of his career, but I actually prefer Maguire on the right. I think Maguire does better on the right-hand side. I just think he's got more of the pitch. He's got just more of the pitch sort of in front of him. I just think it's easier for him. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, midfield issues. You'll see here, Fred again. This is not even under pressure. It's not in a dangerous scenario. He gets the ball here, and he just gives it straight back to Brighton, and Brighton gain possession and counter. So we saw throughout the game. We're going to talk a little bit tactically in a moment, but you'll see there. You can almost see it's almost like a diamond shape. That you see those four Brighton players. So what Brighton actually did, which was quite interesting throughout the game, is they actually, normally when you obviously play a 3-4-3, you've got the two wing backs who are often the wider players, and then you've got obviously you've got two central midfield players, and then you've got the three forward players tend to be more like wingers, maybe a little bit more tucked in, and then you've got your striker. So that's what you tend to have. But what Brighton actually did is they had their two wing backs as such. I think it was Trossard, and I think it might have been Solly March as well. They were taking up really, really advanced positions, more central positions, really. So they were picked, but they were taking up much more advanced positions, probably in the half spaces, you'd say. And they were a lot more advanced. And then what actually happened is Brighton formed a diamond in midfield. So that was sort of the way that Brighton went about things. So I think that was interesting to look at in terms of sort of in a tactical perspective of looking at things. They played with three at the back. They played with normally you'd obviously have four midfield players. Really, wing backs are sort of midfield players. But what you actually saw was more of a diamond, and then you had sort of inside forwards and a striker. So what they did was that they sort of changed up the 3-4-3, and the main sort of aim they had was to sort of block that central area, really put a lot of players in that central area. We were playing a false nine as well. So remember, Brighton knew that even if we got the ball to wide areas, we've not got a striker in the middle. We haven't got that focal point. So they let us have the ball. You can have the ball more comfortably in wider areas. We'll shift across anyway. But when you've got the ball in wide areas, what are you going to do with it? Well, you can't do a great deal with it because you're playing the false nine. McTominay, Fred, Bruno, and Eriksen, they are sort of four midfield players. So Brighton knew really we're going to put four midfield players in there as well. We've got our three centre backs as well. The two wide centre backs can sort of pick up your wide player. So Brighton said, right, what are you going to do? And Brighton were the better team for a lot of the game. So that was interesting. I think the way that Brighton set up in terms of the diamond in midfield. I can't remember exactly who was on the right, but I know Trossard was one of the players who played. I think he was understandably normally in that wing back position, but he actually played much more advanced. And I can't remember whether it was Gross or March on the right, but basically what they did is they played a diamond in midfield, which was, it doesn't really matter who was where, but it's just talking about how they stopped as they played a diamond in midfield. So I think that was really, really interesting. Obviously not in a good way for us, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Christian Eriksen obviously started at false nine. I think when Ronaldo came on, he improved a lot. Eriksen struggled as a false nine. For me, he's better when he's got the game ahead of him, when he's got options ahead of him where he can make an impact. A lot better in these sort of situations. You see here the arrow. That's the ball he puts in for Rashford. He also has a good shot as well in the game that got saved and we nearly scored from. You'll see Rashford couldn't quite get on the end of that. But you'll see there Christian Eriksen, the impact he has when he's playing that sort of, even as I think for some part of the game he was playing in almost like a number 6 role, taking the ball off that back four and looking for options ahead of him. And I think he was a lot better when he played slightly deeper, when he had the options ahead of him. So that's what it was for me in terms of Eriksen. Robert Sanchez here, this was a point I made, and I'm not going to, as I said, always give fair criticism to all players. If this was De Gea in goal, it would have been a goal, I think. Sanchez is great here with his positioning. You see there, he's already looking. You see his body's all sort of almost sort of arched forward already because he knows what he's going to do. Ronaldo plays a ball into Rashford. Sanchez rushes out. You'll see there he's on the edge of his 6-yard box in the end. Yeah, so you'll see there how much he came out of his goal, how proactive, aggressive he was, and he stops the Rashford shot. If that was De Gea in goal, and I don't like to be negative towards our own players, etc., but if that was David De Gea, it's probably a goal. It's probably a goal. So I think this is something just to note. I'm not going to play that because of copyright, etc., but that video there was the goal that Brighton scored where De Gea didn't come and claim the ball where he could have done better. So I think that just shows something about David De Gea, in particular about where he could improve. And I've said this here, I think we will need a new goalkeeper in the future. So that was it really in terms of this short bit of analysis. So I'm just going to stop sharing now and just come on to main screen. So that's it really. So the key points I'd take away from what I said there were sort of the midfield area. McTominay and Fred. McTominay wasn't mentioned too much there, but McTominay really didn't play well enough. Fred didn't either. Shaw and Dalot were not good either. I think Shaw just lacked a little bit of intensity. Dalot was poor on the ball. Defensive awareness wasn't great. Who else? Yeah, Rashford was poor, I thought. Bruno as well. And Sancho didn't really impact the game. So I think Martinez and Maguire were okay, but Martinez should have had a penalty given against him. So you could even argue after I watched the game back yesterday, and there were a few shaky moments, as you would expect, but Brighton should have had a penalty. So I think there was quite a few negatives, but I don't want to make it overly negative. I want to give constructive criticism. I think what Ten Hag needs to do for the next game, we need to bring a striker back in. So obviously Ronaldo wasn't apparently fully ready. That's fine. We need a striker in for Brentford. Brentford, obviously last season, since Thomas Frank's come up, they've obviously mostly played a back three. It'd be interesting to see. I haven't seen Brentford yet this season. I know they played against Leicester, but I'd imagine they'd set up in a similar shape than they did last season, if I'm not mistaken. Even if they play, a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, they're still going to have plenty of players in that midfield area. So we need to look at that midfield area and see where we can get more dominance in there. I think bringing Eriksen back, maybe put Martial in if he's fit, or Ronaldo. Bring Eriksen back. I bring Donny van de Beek in for Bruno as well. I would even maybe start bringing a player like Amad or Garnacho for Rashford. And you could even argue Sancho as well didn't play too well. But it just depends on how Ten Hag wants to see this. Is Ten Hag going to make big decisions now, or will he give it 4 or 5 games before he drops players? But for me, I think what we've got to look at, and we've got to look at the fixtures coming up. This Brentford game is a crucial game for us, this next game, because if we don't pick up anything from this Brentford game, we then got Liverpool. After 3 games, if we haven't got any points on the board or only a couple of points, that's really going to hurt us. So we really need to. I said against Brighton, we had to win that game really, because you've got Liverpool who've dropped points. Spurs, obviously, you want to try and sort of counteract that and take advantage of Liverpool dropping points, because it's probably not going to happen that too often. Obviously, City won. You've got Spurs and Arsenal and Chelsea won. So we're already 3 points behind a lot of the big teams. So I think Brentford's going to be a crucial game for us. It really is. But for me, I'd bring in Malacia. I thought Shaw was poor. I'd bring in Malacia. I'd keep the rest of the back four probably the same. I'd have to start Fred again if we don't bring anybody else in the transfer window. I'd start Fred, Donny and Eriksen in midfield. And then I'd play probably Sancho on the left, Amad on the right, and Ronaldo or Martial up front. If Martial's fit as well as Ronaldo, I wouldn't even mind seeing Martial, Ronaldo and Sancho. I really wouldn't. I know Martial's played at number 9 for a lot of the time, but I wouldn't mind seeing Martial even on the left. I think Rashford and Bruno in particular, in terms of our attacking play. I know Rashford offers runs. I know Bruno takes risks, etc. I know all that, but I think they don't. I think along with Shaw as well, Fred and McTominay, you can't really probably drop both. They should be too open. But I think a lot of our players, you could say, well, you don't deserve to play in the next game. But it depends what Ten Hag wants to do. So that's sort of my thoughts. The main sort of analytical points to take away: Brighton flooded the midfield area. I think Caicedo, real quality. Took advantage of that midfield, took control of it. Really showed why he's better than our midfield players. We obviously didn't sign him when we had the chance to, I think for just over £10 million or something like that. So Caicedo was very, very good. And I think the analytical point really was the midfield. We couldn't play through our midfield, and I think we've had that same problem. I criticise sort of Bruno and Rashford and Sancho. I criticise as well for not playing too well. But in all fairness, you've got to look at the midfield area. You've got to get the ball to these players. You've got to play a good pass to these players so they don't have to make that extra yard to try and get on the end of it. You should be playing sort of accurate passes to your attacking players. At Manchester United, you should be providing service for your attacking players, giving the ball to them properly. And I don't think we did that enough, and I don't think we do that enough generally. My thoughts on McTominay and Fred. I just don't think they're good enough. So I'm not going to talk too much about new players, but I do hope that they back Ten Hag, the board. I'm not going to comment too much on individual players, but I do hope they get some good players, and we need to make sure we sign good players. To replace not just better ones than McTominay and Fred. We need to sign good players. So I hope we do that. But in terms of the same team for Brentford, I would make quite a few changes. Obviously, Ten Hag will look at it and think, I want to maybe keep the team similar and try and work with, keep as much the same as I can to try and improve the players that play. Can we keep some continuity, etc. But I also think last season, I think we did that too much. I don't think players were dropped when they played poorly. So I think Ten Hag's got to try and find a sort of a right balance. It's a bit of a risk. Do you put in like an Amad or a Garnacho or somebody like that? What do you do? And Ten Hag's obviously got the experience that we don't have as a top level coach to make those decisions. But I would like to see a few changes. I think that would be right. I think I'd like to see us play with a bit more security in midfield, with the likes of Eriksen and maybe Donny. I thought Donny did well again when he came on. I'd like to see Martial come back in if he's fit, and maybe Ronaldo as well, just so we've got more of a focal point. I've always said with Ronaldo, like, obviously top player in terms of what he's done in the past. I don't think he's a world-class player anymore, but I think he's got some world-class attributes in terms of his striking, his heading, the finishing. I still think he's very good. So if a chance comes to someone, you obviously want Ronaldo to be on the end of it. So although he may hamper some other parts of the team as well, which you have to look at, like pressing and link-up play, although I think he's improved with his link-up play. I still think he could improve in a few aspects. But, I'd like to see one of Martial or Ronaldo at least come in as a focal point. So that's my thoughts, guys. That's my analysis of the match. I'd say I think I think Ten Hag probably learned a lot of things that we already knew in terms of the goalkeeper, the full-backs, even the centre-backs at times, particularly the midfield players and the forward players being wasteful. I think Ten Hag would have learned a lot. But this is only the first game. The board need to back him. Brighton played well. Well, fair play to Brighton. They weren't excellent. They weren't incredible, Brighton, but they deserved to win the game, I think. We did have a couple of clear-cut chances with Bruno in the first half and Rashford in the second half, but I still think Brighton, just played better football than us. The tactical side of things as well. They'd set up, they'd planned perfectly, and we just couldn't respond. So fair enough to Brighton. But that's my match analysis, guys. There wasn't too much tactical in here. As I said, I covered some things on Twitter, but it wasn't tactical. It was more individual mistakes and individual good things that I saw. When I have a game that I can analyse more positively from a tactical viewpoint, I will do that. But I don't want to just rip into every single player and say he's terrible, he's terrible, he's terrible. We had a wrong tactical approach. Ten Hag, you're rubbish, and I don't want to say all that. I always want to. I don't believe that everyone's rubbish and Ten Hag's rubbish. But sometimes after the match, people get sort of very reactionary. I don't want to do that too much. I want to always look at things from a technical, if I can, tactical, positively. But there wasn't too much to look at positively from our point of view. So that's why this time I've mainly covered sort of player weaknesses and strengths. Hopefully against Brentford or Liverpool, we'll see more from the tactical perspective in terms of Ten Hag's philosophy and style of play and system and unit in and out of possession that we can analyse. But thanks a lot, guys, for coming along. I appreciate the support. I hope you enjoyed the video. Only a short video, this one, a pre-recorded one. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. If you're new, please do subscribe. And I'll be back later this week with more content. Cheers, guys. I appreciate the support.